the 20th of August 2022. Welcome everybody. I'm going to be your host tonight. I'm Dana. You can call in if that's your thing at 709-589-4406. All right, we got a great show after such a thing. There we go. Let's get rid of this annoying music, which happens to be great music, unfortunately. We'll call it annoying, that way I don't feel so bad. And bear with me. I accidentally clicked off my control screen. Okay, here we go. All right, just to remind everybody what we're talking about is Japan had a serious event. Remember Chernobyl, they built a sarcophagus on train tracks and rolled it over it. There's nothing left of this one. There was 4 of the reactors that melted down. The most visible ones, reactor 3 and 4. And the fuel pools, you can see there are 2 pools at the top of the buildings. And the reactor core is in the center. So the building doesn't exist anymore. So what the industry done, the nuclear industry, not TEPCO done, is built this contraption off-site. Because the building doesn't exist anymore, reactor 3. They put that over, doesn't physically touch it, and then pretend that they got the fuel out of the pools that don't exist. They've done the same thing with reactor 4, and they're going to be doing it with reactor 1 and 2 this year and next year. And so at reactor 4, they built this contraption. You can see all the debris right there. They rolled out the experts.
Now, the division I ran built nuclear fuel racks for boiling water reactors exactly like Fukushima.
So if he doesn't know that it looks like this and thinks it looks like that, because the Americans got 70 of those reactors, that's where the media probably shot these videos where they claimed they're at the fuel pool of reactor 4. Only BBC Rupert Winfield Hayes was brazen enough to do it also for reactor 3. And so they built this contraption off-site and put it there with cranes and a few hundred homeless people they threw away like paper towels. And you see that piece there is almost as tall as the stump that remains. And they put that there and pretended then that everything was normal. And actually pretending they're in the fuel pool.
What I'm standing is on top of what used to be.
But both of our reactor 3 and 4 don't exist. And so there was huge radioactive fallout that covered the planet and caused a catastrophic, no pun intended, chain reaction events. You broke the food table in many places. So when you look at that piece there, that's taller than both of these put together on top of each other. And that that top piece, I screwed that up today. That piece right there is the same as this one right here, and which is taller than that over there. And they're claiming
reactor building number.
They're at the very top of the building, which is the exact replica, which is reactor 1. They built this Kevlar sarcophagus, so you can see how wide this actually is to give you some context. When you're looking at that, it's very deceiving. You're talking about an absurd amount, and that's why they pretend that they're in the fuel pools, just to manipulate you strictly. And they've been at this a long time. And this is the Japanese or French models. I'll bring it to 100 days. Right there is 100 day, or 20 days rather. And this is 30 days right here. So from 20 days to 21 to 22, 20, all the way up to 30, it's a continuous plume, but it's always moving. Now once the plume stops, let me chop that for you and I'll show you what I mean. So after 20 days, the whole planet is covered in radioactive fallout. And so this is what our planet currently looks like, because you can't destroy this. Think of a snowstorm. It covers the planet after 20 to 30 days, and it never goes away, it never stops snowing. Instead of snow, though, think about how many snowflakes you're thinking about. Then instead of that, think about radiation, and that each one of them is pulsing energy almost at the speed of light every second. And that this has been going on for 80 years, but this was a pulse event. This was a tipping point. All the models agree, by the way. This one is 19.5 days. 19.5 days, and this is France's model, 20 days. So the Norwegian Institute of Air Research and the French actual government, your media has worked hard for 80 years to make you incapable of having a conversation on your own. Spider-Man and the Hulk and everybody else reinforced those lies and disgusting propaganda machines. There's too many to count, right? All right, here we go. That wasn't so bad. Somebody was saying their comments got removed at the beginning. If you put your comments there before I go live, Google randomly disappears them. And I always find that offensive when somebody accuses me of that, but I get it, right? It appears, and I think that's why they do it that way. But there wasn't no brain-shattering comments. Unless you're attacking me, I'm not likely to remove it. I couldn't care less. I'm too fucking busy doing my own shit. Senate's NDAA limits liability of nuclear power plant owners in accidents. Now, this is India, I believe. No, the U.S. Senate, my apologies, has limited liability at $13 billion. The Fukushima disaster cost $187 billion. Oh, come on, it's going to cost $1 trillion. But anyway, so, Hanford, he wants $700 billion more. Don't worry, Kishida, and Yoon from South Korea are buddies now. Both of them says the reactor's never melted down, so we're in good hands now, I'm pretty sure. This was all over the place today. Everybody had to come out for the IAEA, push this story apparently. Japan's Kishida, which is the latest itineration of a useful idiot, also known as the Prime Minister for some reason, visits Fukushima plant ahead of water release. Anybody see the pictures I just showed you? Do you think that they're just going to release it today, or do you think it's actually such an important story? I shouldn't complain. It's been pretty boring the last 4 or 5, 6 years. And I finally got something that's active. And damn it, here we go again. Kishida Mashada. He made a brief. Hey, everybody, see you later. Visit the tsunami. It wasn't wrecked by a tsunami as much as it was wrecked by explosions, for Christ's sakes. There's such dishonest people in every step of the way. Made a brief visit to and then they call it wrecked. I'm pretty sure that qualifies a bit more than wrecked. Whatever. Let's talk about that for a second. Fukushima Diachi, a theme park. That's 2012. Tourists would be treated to a reenactment of the explosions. Beeping Geiger counters. People crying out, "Oh, there's too many bananas. I can't make my way out of here. It's all so dark." Gunderson, the piece of shit, I showed you him earlier. He faked Reactor 4. Says Fukushima, could Fukushima have a China syndrome? No one can get within 100 feet of the reactors. Could Fukushima, like this is, I'm sorry, yeah, December 2011. Gunderson made the assemblies for the fuel pools. Did I ever mention that? Workers at reactor number 3 say the nuclear fuel is gone from the spent fuel pool. And there's great skepticism that any remain. Oh, that's appropriate, Tim. Because look at that's reactor 3. They built this contraption to manipulate, but that's what it actually looks like. We live in a pretty strange world. We live in a pretty strange world. Here we go. Keep going there. Where'd to leave off? Yeah. Worker at reactor number 3. There's nobody working at reactor number 3. It's Medusa, for goodness sakes. It says the nuclear fuel is gone from the spent fuel pool. Gunderson via Bloomberg. He got all the media, but he told them all the same propaganda as the propaganda machine done. That's quite the outfit they got there, right? It looks like an anti-nuclear group. He must laugh himself to sleep every night. I actually think it's going to blow up in their face after declaring a cold shutdown while the nuclear cords are still extraordinarily hot. Let me see them. Yeah, they look really hot to me. Where were the cords again, Dana? Top of the buildings? Yeah, the buildings were 190 feet tall. You're only looking at little stumps there. There's no tops. And fuel pools had around 6 reactors each. Don't ask Gunderson that, though. He'll cut your throat. You mentioned that. Come here, little boy. TEPCO press conference, which is a really... So shouldn't nuclear universities take care of a meltdown instead of TEPCO, who's not even a decommission authority, let alone authority anything nuclear? Should nuclear scientists, nuclear university students, the nuke-tired academics, replace TEPCO at the meltdowns? That's a good idea, isn't it? So get rid of this. What are you saying, Dana? We'll get rid of the homeless. We'll put nuclear students there. We'll get rid of the destitute that are working there and dying every day. Put nuclear scientists there. Oh, gee. What about the immigrants who don't speak the language? Well, we can use nuke-tired academics for that. Is such a thing possible? I don't know. But I'm just saying we should have a... That's why we got a poll tonight. Because right now it's the homeless, the destitute, and the victims of society, the immigrants that don't speak the language. We shouldn't replace them with nuclear scientists, nuclear university students who are going to grow up to be mass murderers, and the nuke-tired academics. Lots of them. In the future, they'll be considered expendable. There'll be a bounty on them in the near future, I bet. TEPCO press conference. Temperature rises number 4 spent fuel pool at around 50 degrees Celsius. That's 2012. Let's look at it. The fuel pool is about 100 feet above that I don't know. It's hard to say if you can't see it. They wouldn't lie to you, would they? No. Typical press conference spent fuel pool number 4 heat exchangers restarted. That's rich. Hey, I do believe we got pictures of all 4 sides of Reactor 4 at our disposal. They ain't restarting anything there. They're maniacs, though. I've got to give them credit. At the end, somebody climbed up there. He was really agile and really athletic. He didn't make any noise when he dropped dead, did he? His organs would melt immediately. Don't worry about your hair falling out. Most people that are exposed to this when they're running away will squat down and excrete their organs because they melted, and then they'll fall over and die. Not necessarily in that order. Some of them after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the radiation victims that done that, were found just squatted down like they're terracotta soldiers. There's no 2 people dying of radiation illnesses are the same. Well, you can see that in all the cancer units. Most of the cancer is radiation now, right? 80 years of emissions. So, I mean, the scam is really something. I mean, 'cause when you look at how big that structure is, and then the rest of the structure, you can see what kind of... This is all done with cranes. That's why it looks that way. The cap they got there, everything's done with cranes. You can't go there. It's deadly. But apparently all these people, they had a great time. Yeah. Here you are. I got less than a
In Reactor 4. At the end of our tour, we were checked for radiation exposure. In 4 hours, I received the equivalent of less than a chest x-ray.
1,500 highly radioactive fuel rods inside this pool. They've got...
So they're claiming they're 100 feet above that building looking down at the very... So they got to be at the very top of the building to do it. It's a pretty neat trick when the building doesn't exist anymore, see? And so when you get the world media doing that, that should worry the shit out of you. TEPCO finds a 35-ton machine fallen into number 3 fuel pool. Appears to have dropped on the nuclear fuel. Man. So they actually knew these jobs existed, these types of jobs. And they went to university, got incredible degrees, so they could get a job to come out and lie to you. I'll show you a picture. That's reactor 3, so there's no fuel pool. Hang on. Where the hell am I? There. Wait for it. There we go. I can't tell the difference. So stop doing that there now. So number 3 fuel pool is somewhere behind me, over my head rather. Look at this hole right here. There's a fuel assembly within there by the looks of it. Everything got turned into a projectile. So there is no fuel pool. Same thing for reactor 4. There's no fuel pool. The truck is just there to get pictures to manipulate the majority of the population because they don't understand it. They don't know what a nuclear plant looks like. Every time they went near one, a bunch of security guards ran up on them and asked them for their ID, so they didn't go back. Cesium at 172 times the government's limit in T near Sendai. Won't cause any health problems soon after being consumed. Give it a few years. I mean, I can't get my arm down. There's a big tumor in the way. Says radiation professor, 1,100 are already sold. Said a radiation professor. Anything a radiation professor says, you do the opposite immediately. Japan's Kishida visit Fukushima. Oh, that's what doesn't matter. Hang on, we'll fix it. I'll fix it. There, she's fixed. Kishida visiting Fukushima. So that's what started that whole other tantrum, by the way. Wrecked nuclear plant. It's wrecked. His trip came soon after he came home from the summit. We got some headlines of that. With the U.S. and South Korean puppets at the American presidential retreat, Camp Davis. Before leaving presidential retreat, all the vacuum cleaners, salesmen are like, I'm heading there. Kishida said it's time to make a decision on the treated water release date. It's not been set due to the controversies surrounding the plan. Tokyo Electric Power Company, which we got a poll about tonight, should scientists and nuclear universities and nuclear academics replace TEPCO at multiple nuclear meltdowns? First off, we've never had them tell us the truth in 12 years. Hopefully that's not a record. I'm sure the other industries are doing the same thing to us. And the 8 million species that nobody seems to give a shit about anymore, except for a few of us that are johnnying here tonight, bless your hearts. Says the water must be removed to make room for the plant's decommissioning. Must be nice to be insane. That's the only way you can describe the media, is they're actually insane. So it's never stopped. First off, you lost almost all the inventory right away in these two reactors. Reactor 1, the fuel pool detonated and burnt below it. And then also the reactor core burnt through and went China's syndrome, so to speak. But Reactor 1, the fuel pool and Reactor 2, the fuel pool and the reactor core burnt constantly for days and then exited the building. We know that because the building's still standing. And there's a lot of we supply an amazing amount of documentation that the common spent fuel pool is also missing. And we have pictures that were released in 2010 on the 10th anniversary, or 11 on the 10th anniversary, in January of that year. 700 plus pictures, and these were from a high quality drone that nobody's ever seen before. And everything was redacted for Reactor 1, 2, 3, 4, common spent fuel pools, Reactor 6 also. And that was really something. So I done an entire video just on those zoomed in pictures of the reactors. We should revisit all of that and redo all of that again. Maybe tomorrow night, just for a bit of fun. Accidental leaks from the tanks because much of the water is still contaminated. And Japan has obtained support from the non-regulatory agency with no authority, the IAEA, which is the lapdog for the military-industrial complex known as UN, which shouldn't exist. And during his visit, which is 195 militaries, right, Kishida saw wastewater filtering and diluting facilities. They have South Korea's nuclear scientists actually visited. The only nuclear scientists ever visit Fukushima was South Korea's recently. There was like 18 of them, I believe. And they weren't allowed, they didn't take their own samples, their own pictures or anything like that, or videos, which is standard for Fukushima. Nobody is allowed independent access. Kishida saw wastewater filtering and dilution facilities. help prevent reputational damage. And we'll challenge that right after. We'll go finish the story after and we'll challenge it. Help prevent reputation. And that really bothers me when they say help prevent radiation damage. The South Korean president says he backs the International Atomic Energy Agency safety evaluation. But he's also, several years ago when he was the prosecutor, there was a controversial story came out of South Korea. We covered it. It lasted for several days, which is a big deal in the media. Was that former prosecutor for Seoul was running for the presidential elections and obviously now was elected, said there was no nuclear meltdown, there was no collapsed reactors, there was no emissions. And the first thing he done, the very next morning after Yoon was elected, he went in front of a nuclear power plant with a bunch of employees in the back of him and got his picture and video and made a statement on TV that there was going to be they were going to reverse the previous administration's anti-nuclear and reverse that and promote nuclear and build it around the world. So you can't have reality and promote nuclear, see? If you promote nuclear, you got to deny reality of everything about nuclear. And that's what they've done. So the last administrations, their 4 years of great work were just unraveled. And that's why they were elected, was to replace them. And there was probably speculation at that time that there was meddling going on in the votes. Measures for possible reputational damages. Well, the only one I got to worry about really is me and you folks that are watching this. But basically it's me. There's nobody else out there saying anything negative. Nothing. The ones that are talking about tritium, which they got almost the entire planet. If you ask anybody, go and ask anybody about Fukushima, like, yeah, tritium, right? Not tritium-3H even, but just tritium. When was the last time we seen the word tritium-3H? Which is man-made tritium, right? Totally different from the natural stuff. Causing 3 reactors to melt. And that's such a disrespectful thing, causing 3 reactors. Here's 2 of them. Causing 3 reactors to melt, which, like, there's no urgency, there's no respect to it. It's just like, yeah, they melted, whatever, right? Anyway, how's your day going? That's what they're basically doing, right? Well, with you, they'll just spit in your face, and then when you go to do something, security guards will mace you and stun gun you and drag you out. The police will laugh at you, and the lawyers will laugh at you when you try to sue. The water is collected, filtered, and stored in around 1,000 buckets. I'm just waiting for them to call it buckets instead of tanks. No description of tanks. There is no water in tanks. Like, haven't you seen the pictures? Anybody see the pictures? Is there anybody on the planet besides us that's seen the pictures, I wonder? Oh, tritium, the ultimate slap in the face, right? So officially there's 2.2 grams of tritium got out of these 4 buildings altogether. Each building had around 12 reactor cores in the fuel pools and a running reactor core for 3. Reactor 4 had half of reactor core. They were changing fuel. They never change half. They usually change less than a half. So we'll play it safe and just say less. You can't collect it, filter it, and store it because you're pouring water over nuclear meltdown. There's fuel particulates. The fuel particulates will go in to a filter and you'll have a meltdown in the filter because you got gammas and alphas and neutrons and betas right at the one time gathered up. That's a chain reaction. That's what you're trying to avoid. I've never heard them say, well, The filters are full of boron to stop a chain reaction because the gig will be up right away, right? Fuel pools are full of boron to stop a chain reaction. They're not even touching each other. Like, anyway. Aspartame. Roaches and ants won't eat it. Cats and dogs won't eat it. Even house flies wouldn't eat it. And the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, serves aspartame to you, and the side effects are almost endless. They're catastrophic to your health. All the cheap candies and sugar and the dollar shops, the supermarkets, the corner shops in particular, are aspartame. The worst thing you can do to your body is this. Aspartame is a GMO bacteria, and it poops, basically, and they collect the poop, and the poop is really sweet. But the problem is, it's like 10,000 times sweeter than sugar, see? So if you really like sweet stuff, it's perfect for you. But the problem is the side effects are catastrophic. Tokyo Shimburg. Evacuation of Tokyo considered on March the 12th, after number 1 reactor exploded. We have to start thinking about a wide area evacuation, including Tokyo. If reactor 1, because reactor 1 exploded, and this was a Kevlar sarcophagus they put around it. That's the framing for it. But reactor 2 and 3 are completely gone, so you should have evacuated Tokyo, see? Because all the reactors were the same. Well, not necessarily, because reactor 3 was a truly Medusa. It was a mixed oxide fuel reactor. What that means is they reclaimed the uranium, plutonium was already gone through a chain reaction. At that stage, it's considered 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. Try wrapping your mind around that statement because that's what it is. So if you put it through a chain reaction again, it's 2 billion times more toxic. So when I call them a hot, everything coming out of there is a hot particle, and a single one, you can put 200 million on the head of a needle and you can't see them. A single one can cause many, many different diseases over time. And your body will attack it for decades and build a sarcophagus around it eventually. We call them tumors. TEPCO is checking the levelness of the number 4 spark fuel power. That's 2012. That's 11 months later, actually. So the story of Kishida going down to the plant to make sure everything was hunky-dory is such a ludicrous statement, such a disconnected statement. And all the media worldwide is reporting it. It was sickening. It was sickening. Just put your spirit, it gets sicker, unfortunately. Yeah. It's nuclear, right? And being degenerate is their job, apparently. Try this again. Oh. I know it's just right there. I'm looking too hard. You know how it is when you look too hard, right? That's 30 seconds. I was looking for that other one that we got. That's probably it right there. This is the great Arnie Gunnarsson. And Arnie's going to cut your throat, and you're going to thank him for it, a lot of people anyway.
The Unit 4 was damaged twice. It was damaged by all of the earthquakes that occurred, and it was also damaged by a series of explosions over the first week or two of the accident. So the building is structurally weakened. Now, Tokyo Electric's acknowledged that. They went in May and June of last year. This is more than a year ago, and put an enormous number of extra structural supports directly under the fuel pool to keep the bottom of the pool from breaking through.
Arnie wouldn't cut your throat at all, would he? So the fuel pool is at the top of the buildings. There is no top to that building, right? That doesn't stop them from lying constantly either. Another thermometer breaks at Fukushima. Now there's only one left at the bottom of number 2 pressure vessel. Like number 2 liquefied. And when China sent them straight down into the earth. It burnt constantly for several days. There's no getting, and even today there's no one getting in the buildings. But look at the propaganda back in 2012. Radiation monitoring station data was actually 3 decimal places greater than numbers released to the public. We're seeing lots of numbers of like 20, 30 million becquerels a square meter, so give it another 3 decimals times 600. Video of damaged spent fuel pool number 3 reveals single bundle of fuel that is very near the water surface. Should be a lot of bumbles. Did I say bumbles? I said it loud. Was that too loud? Don't yell so friggin' much, Dana. Alrighty. Hang on. So there was bundles in the fuel pool of reactor 3. They said, look at that. So it's probably 120 feet above what you can see there. Obviously, it's invisible. Oh, you don't believe it? Of course it is. The industry wouldn't lie to you. Unbelievable. Large city, 60 kilometers from the meltdown, is 3 or 4 times radiation levels. As with the Soviets evacuated everyone. Hot spots at 500 to 700 times normal. That's being polite calling it it's a no-go zone, which we, in North America, we call them nuclear wastelands. The Japs call them no-go zones. Large city, 60 kilometers from the meltdown. 3 to 4 times radiation levels of Chernobyl. So 2.7 million, basically. Residents forced to dump nuclear waste in the parks and the forests. Yeah, TEPCO. You find it is yours. We're not taking it back. There's a community that was sued them because their water filtration system, the sediment from the reclamation water filtration, was so radioactive nobody would take it. And they had 50,000 one-ton bags. And producing 5,000 one-ton bags. I can't remember how often, but it was a problem, let's put it that way. And TEPCO was like, no. Which is why we got a poll tonight. Oh, what's over there? Should nuclear scientists, nuclear university students, the nuke-tart academics replace TEPCO at the meltdowns? Well, hell yeah, Dana. Yeah, just calm down, Charlie. Still going strong, eh? I sold 83 of these, you filthy liar. You sick bastard. T-shirts? The T-shirt itself is a real big seller. This is a big hit. It's their best seller. Bless your heart. You scammer. Kishida Mishada, the Tokyo Bill in Chicago. Also known affectionately with a whole bunch of hate as Calm Down Charlie, has been stalking me for 10 years. And that's some of his favorite. And we got stuff on the back too. You can see the fuel pool, the fake ones and the real ones. You sick bastards. They call me that because I promote that stuff there. They call it top secret when you challenge them, eh? And we got a long sleeve one in case you can change the colors. You only got so many colors. Don't ask me why I choose these particular colors. I think it's because I'm stupid, maybe. And you got all kinds of sizes. And depends on the different colors, you can get different sizes, I noticed. I'm going to just make a liar out of me. Yeah, thank you, appreciate it. And I have all kinds of other Fukushima fallout, nuclear fallout, an LE, extinction level event. Fukushima meltdown extinction event, the ocean, and that's the ocean, and that's the airborne fallout. And that's the front and the back, right? That's the front and that's the back of the shirts. So if you hang out there, you can get your mug. Fukushima, like I'm just walking in the sunshine, mugs. Save the children, ban nuclear power. Pro-nuclear is a hate crime. I love the nuclear 93 million miles away. That was a great one, wasn't it? Fukushima E equals MC squared. Pro-nuclear, save the whales, save the insects. I should have one there, save the humans, ban nuclear power plants. I gotta fix that. And great shirt there, Nuclear Scumbag Show with Dana Durnford, because that's what we called it for years, the show. We decided to lighten things up and go a little easy on the scumbags. They were born that way. It's not their fault, Dana. I know. I like picking on the fuckers. Residents forced to dump nuclear waste in the parks. 45% of the kids in Fukushima Survey thyroid exposures to radiation. I'm only laughing because 50,000 microsieverts per year for a 1-year-old is just, it's not acceptable any way you look at it. It's absurd amounts we're talking about. The thyroids are now producing brutal radioactive hormones on top of everything else. They probably, these numbers are going to really affect their hearts, and you'll have permanent lesions in their organs, their blood, their immune system is going to be garbage. All soil samples taken 60 kilometers from the plant survey exceeded the legal limit, a minimum of 326,000 becquerels per square meter. One location of 931,000 becquerels. If your Geiger counter does that, it won't get that high because it'll go run. And you get this bleak words, run, the way you just came. Excuse me. 98.6% of the time, air contamination around the Fukushima plant is not even measured. 98.6. So 1.4% of the time they measure radiation around the plant because it lacks qualified personnel to change the filters. Because that's a lethal dose right there, trying to get near it. That's the job for your disadvantaged in society. That's how they see it. Orwellian radiation was being deliberately released from the meltdowns, argued the British government. Oh, no, it is what it is. There's definitely no containment. Come on, Dan, there's no reactors. I'm just trying to be funny, I apologize. TEPCO will start covering number 4 spent fuel pool tomorrow, which, of course, is this doozy right here. What year was this right now? 2012. So, yeah, that's what it looked like. In 2013, rather, there is no fuel pool. They were at the top of the buildings. So we have this incredible legacy of lying. Oh, one of my favorites. Foundation improvement work begins tomorrow for Reactor 4. Sadistic bastards, eh? Those two are just... That's a new level of evil, by the way. We're going to cover the fuel pools. I'll show you the fuel pool of Reactor 4, for instance, we're talking about. So you can wrap your mind around it. They're at the top of the buildings, right? Which obviously don't exist. So you got, the foundation improvement How do you do foundation improvement to a building that don't exist? How are you going to cover a fuel pool that doesn't exist? So when Kishida is going to meet the fisherman, he's not going to be there to tell the truth. Because their entire legacy, it's 2012 TEPCO, by the way. TEPCO. Which is why we got a poll tonight, is should TEPCO be replaced by nuclear scientists, nuclear university students, because they're just going to grow up and kill us anyway, and nuke-tart academics. There's way too many of them out there. We need to send that herd out big time. Like, big time. See, we got an amazing 18 people on our show. We've been doing for over a decade. Yeah, your dreams really can't come true if you work really hard for a decade. There's proof. TEPCO foundation improvement work begins tomorrow. They just say what they want, right? TrueCat is not on the agenda at all. They got a public relation firm telling them what to say to the media. The media is going to shove it down your throat, and that's how they get kickbacks. Then they'll buy some advertisement there. That's the kickback. Or getting the tacit approval, the organization representing the fishermen is considered, you ready for this? The final hurdle. So all they got to do now is get permission from the fishermen to dump it in the ocean. And that's the final hurdle. So you notice none of these stories shows you those pictures? How come? You only got this one chance, you know. Getting the approval of the fishermen is the final hurdle. And it says government will make every effort to ensure and counter reputational damage. Oh, and counter. TEPCO releases footage number 3, spent fuel pool, shows debris, fuel racks, cranes. And so it doesn't, though. Hang on. There is nothing there. There's no fuel pools or racks or... Oh, I am. Wrong window, there you go. We'll get there. Watch the news, watch the news. Trust the science, trust the science. Watch the news, watch the news. All fucking pirates in the media. Watch the news. Trust the science, trust the science. So reactor 3 is to your right. There is no fuel pool. Which is why. Yeah. Operation Long Jump. That's right, James. Thank you. I forgot. Duh. What is it? Festival of Friendship, I think it was. Was the missing part of that. I can't remember it. We got that in one of those videos where he says that about me. I didn't want a Festival of Friendship. I mean, but that was like 10 years ago that he... Calm down, Charlie's been stalking me. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida visited the crippled nuclear disaster site. Crippled. It says premature to say when the country would release the treated water. And he said, I must refrain from commenting on the specific timing at this point. Trust the science. Nearly 9 in 10 respondents to the Kyoto poll published Sunday were concerned about reputational damage. 9 in 10 of the Japs were on this is disgusting media, which is simply not going to be true. 90% of Japan believes that everything's cleaned up. What do you like? There's not even 5% of the Japan believes the official story. Trust the science. Watch the news. Watch the news. Trust the science. International Atomic Energy Agency plan to discharge Fukushima wastewater. The IAEA has got, my goodness, right? They've been there 5 times in 12 years. I know what you're saying. Oh, they ain't even more than that. They're there all the time. No, 5 times in 12 years, and all of them this year. All 5 of them. No moving spent fuel at the number 4 until 2014 at the earliest. Up to 10 years for removal of fuel from all pools. Reactor buildings to be demolished. Well, there is no fuel pools there at number 4. My God. Scumbag Colbert report is not selling out to the nuclear industry. Mentions no nukes. And has a pro-nuke on as a guest. James Colbert had a site called Fukushima Updates. Fukushima Updates. And he sold it to the Japan's Reconstruction Agency. But he used to have he had the people that attacked me posting on his site. Whenever they felt like it, they had the keys to the site. And he had all the scumbags were there. And then they sold the name of the site to the Reconstruction Agency. We covered it when that site rolled out with the Reconstruction Fukushima update, right? Hang on, you don't believe me? It's up to you. Well, hang on. Because I done a whole presentation on it. Mr. Colbert. What's going on there? Try this again. Giving you 2 words is probably too much for it. Yeah, James Colbert and Ryan Dawson. What was he? He was on Ryan Dawson's. He said there was a leak, right? Oh, this video's not going to play. There was a leak at Fukushima. He said you have to sit there and breathe the air for hours before it can harm you.
And I think it shows that there are many sources of radiation and radioactive disasters waiting to happen, really, that are local to North America that can be now conveniently covered over because people will only be looking at Fukushima as the only possible source of radioactivity, which is a pretty good cover, I think, for the nuclear industry in North America to basically cover over all their sins and to say, oh, look, it's all coming from the other side of the Pacific Ocean.
James. Hang on, that's not the one. I won't, the videos I want that I got there of it won't play because I got to reformat them. Let's keep going. Oh, Fukushima update. That's one of them. Yeah, don't worry about it. I'll do it after this a little bit. Taking years to remove fuel carries extraordinary and continuing risk. Quake could send the buildings tumbling down, resulting in an even greater release of radiation. The buildings are actually destroyed, right? They're already gone. The worst was done right away. I'm so concerned about Unifor's fuel pool. Senator on national TV. TEPCO's plans must be sped up. So this was the propaganda machine. Children's health problem increasing, incurable stomach aches, chest pains, nose bleeds that don't stop, diarrheas that never go away. Bird study increases in frequency of selected deaths due to mutations as consequences of Fukushima. Results suggest significant mortality costs low doses, 0.05 microsieverts an hour. But you shouldn't be measuring it in microsieverts because it's physical atoms. Scumbag Gunnarsson, as much cesium number 4 spent fuel pool as in 800 atomic bombs ever dropped, which is the atmospheric bombs you're talking about. Fukushima will be in one place at one time and on ground level. Again, the cesium, because you got to get street creds, right? So it does say some good stuff, but it's not in the context that it should be in. The biggest byproduct is, for instance, is curium isotopes, not cesium. And curium isotopes, you need lead shielding 20 times thicker than you do for plutonium. 16,000 workers have quit, which is why I'm advocating that nuclear scientists, nuclear university students, and nuclear academics should replace TEPCO and the homeless and the destitute and the victims of society and the immigrants who don't speak the language. Filmmaker, hope is hard to come by in Fukushima. To this day, women are having abortions for fear of genetic damage. Yeah, because you see it all around them, not because they're phobia. Cooling system suspended at Fukushima spent fuel pool number 3. No, this is November 2012, for goodness sakes. Will not resume. Well, there is no fuel pool at number 3. And this is a year and a half later. Right? There is no fuel pool. The building is completely leveled. Fukushima Diachi is a theme park. We already covered that one. 200% as many radioactive products returned to Japan this year than in 2011. It's 2012. 2011, lots of countries had to ship the food back and products. And 2012, it was double it. South Korea shipped back 6 million pounds of just fish in one period, of radioactive, deadly fish. Fukushima radiation underreported. The metal boxes and monitors are blocking radioactivity. Hundreds of locations in multiple prefectures affected. There was one community where they had 3,000 fake Geiger counters all around the city that only measured little fractions, but the city was surrounded by 1 million one-ton bags they picked up, and these bags are 100,000 becquerels a kilogram. And there's 1,000 kilograms in each bag, right? But outdoors, you weren't finding nothing on the 3,000 Geiger counters. So they just wanted the people to stay there like Hiroshima and Nagasaki so they can study them forever. Fukushima kids declared okay by the government. Officials ordered doctors to stop examining patients. Sounds about right for the nuclear industry, don't it? Astonishing thyroid abnormalities found in Fukushima kids declared okay by the government. And officials ordered the doctors to stop examining them. So politicians have nothing to do with the people, because that's what those seats are representing. Right? They're representing a corporate personhood. Corporations with human rights. Inside the Fukushima nuclear plant, 12 years. This is Miles O'Brien, Lake Barrett, Ken Abusler, and a few more scumbags. Science correspondent, the one-armed bandit, Miles O'Brien. He lost his arm, when he was at Fukushima doing those videos, pretending he was in Reactor 4 fuel pool. And he went over to Thailand and got his arm amputated. He disappeared for like 2 weeks. And then he showed up. Oh, by the way, I'm just a one-armed bandit from here on out. I say he had footage and they just cut his arm off, right? To get their hands on it because he wouldn't give it up. Never dreamt for a second. And he pissed off the Japs to cut his arm off. Lake Barrett. Lake is like some kind of weird dinosaur. He was in charge of the reactor at 3 Mile Island with Arnie Gunnarsson. When everybody stopped looking, they boiled off millions of gallons of lethal radioactive water. It took them 2 years. 2 years straight, dirty bombs, releasing brutal radiation into the environment. They probably just dumped it all and pretended they were doing it for 2 years, no doubt. Lake Barrett, TEPCO advisor. We got videos of them right from day one. They covered up 3 Mile Island, right? I gave up on this pretty quick because it's just going to piss me off. Miles O'Brien, to say the least, my guide for my seventh visit to Fukushima's nuclear engineer, Lake Barrett. Both of these people should be convicted of crimes against humanity and get the death sentence and be publicly executed. Should be the first execution they ever show in live on YouTube. Should be Lake Barrett and Miles O'Brien. Let me see if I can find Miles in his glory. Probably can't. That's Miles, yeah, that's him. That's him there when he had 2 arms. See that? He used to have 2 arms. That was 2013. Hang on, maybe I can find BBC. I don't know where I put that to. One last try, no. So let's play this one. Let me check the volume though, because you know how it works. Here we go.
Long-term solution here is to remove and secure the nuclear fuel. At Unit 4, they
At Unit 4, so he's saying this is Unit 4.
have begun that process. This reactor was shut down for maintenance when the tsunami hit.
That's Reactor 4. I'm not even going to go down that road because these are... what they've done is there's no reason to be that evil. I can buy my own piece of the Constitution, said the nuclear industry. Inside the reactors. They just go allegedly to the water filtration mixing machine. Not the filtration, but you never see that again, eh? Now it's the mixing machine. Debris from near Fukushima nuclear plants being ground up and burned in other parts of Japan. And fears that the Fukushima plant could break apart during cleanup process. Fukushima nuclear material to wash up on beaches and be blown over surrounding countrysides. Extremely radioactive rubble found on top of Fukushima Reactor 3. Well, there is no top. What year is that? 2013. There is no Reactor 3. Let me show you another picture of Reactor 3. This is shortly after the accident because the smoke, right? So the fuel pools in the reactor cores are at the top of the building. There is no top. And don't forget what it looks like after to your left. From either the spent fuel pool or the reactor can't be from simple. Happy Fukushima nuclear plant worker interviewed is like a war zone. Oh, it's worse than a war zone. Scumbag Arnie Gunnarsson, traitor, says medical doctors ordered not to tell patients their problems are related to Fukushima. Well, the media was reporting on it. He was just regurgitating it. Of course, they're not going to say nobody died. Indications are that there's a second leak of Fukushima, says Japan expert. And there's a second leak, is there? Fish over 140 kilometers from the plant have showed extremely high levels of contamination. Molten fuel may have flowed through cracks in the foundation. No one's been able to go under and take samples, except for Osama when he's not on vacation. Dr. Carl Grossman, what you're doing, sir, is disgusting. You're a disgusting, a despicable parasite. You lying, disgusting parasite. Japan promotes food products at the Hong Kong Trade Fair. Japan had 150 companies there with free food and other organizations. Well, more than 150. Promoting the country's food in a pavilion for the Jap food, so you know where to stay away from. Set up for the first time in 4 years. As food tasting is allowed this year. Trust the science. Watch the news. As food tasting is allowed this year. The Hong Kong government suggests if the plan is carried out, it'll ban imports. So what they're saying is that the buildings didn't blow up and melt down. See? That's what they're saying. Let's see. The cops how to use a bat and put it between their legs and then pull backwards, and they'll do a face plant and break their teeth and their jaws and their forehead on the ground. Scum, man. Just once the bad apples get in there, that's the end of it. The Jap government plans to dilute treated tritium water to 1/7 of the World Health Organization, which is UN. IAEA is UN, the World Health Organization is UN, ERP is the UN, UNSCLEAR is the UN, the IPCC is the UN. South Korea court dismissed the suit to stop Fukushima water release. So they haven't stopped releasing it. Trust the science. Attempts to stop Fukushima flowing into the ocean have failed. most likely flowing fairly quickly from nearby reactor 2. What about 3 and 4? No, they're okay. You sure? I was a little taken back by how quick they're willing to cut your throat. And I've been covering it for years and years and years and years. Look at that. Nothing there, and there's nothing in reactor 4 either. I'm coming from close to reactor 2, yeah, reactor 3 and 4. Plant chief in 2011, we failed to urgently deal with the radioactive leakage. We can't overcome the crisis. And 2 years later, TEPCO admitted they couldn't afford to work on it. So let's get rid of them. Let's kill them, and then we can replace them with nuclear scientists, nuclear university students, and nuclear tart academics. But then killing's a little extreme. Well, they killed us, the planet, forever. The planet can't recover from what they're doing, and Gunnison done to us. Fukushima Unit 4 fuel racks are distorted from the quake. And the roof is falling into the pool. And the nuclear rods are likely to snap, and they won't be able to be removed. They're like a crushed pack of cigarettes. Remember that story in 2014? There it is, baby. Remember that? The fuel in the pool is like, it's crushed like a crushed pack of cigarettes, and you touch each other, and all goes boom. Gotta evacuate Tokyo. Please, everybody pray for the Fukushima 50. Meanwhile, the building's actually gone. Trust the experts. Trust the science. Watch the news. Watch the news. Fears are mounting that Fukushima radiation could lead to dangerous contamination levels in seafood. I have to agree with you. DARPA wants a searchable database in all your conversations. Welcome to hell. Japan's Fukushima water release plans fuels fear despite the International Atomic Energy Agency's backing. That's France 24. We've done an entire video on France's 24 news cycle for 2011. They were disgusting. It was despicable. And that's the French government, of course. Every government on the planet hates everybody's guts. Oh yeah, this is great. They said it's like diluting whiskey and Coke. Dumping the waste, the so-called tanks, is like diluting whiskey and Coke. Because I love you so much, see? They don't want to lie to you, but you won't listen to their lies. You won't believe their lies, so they're forced to lie, right? It's just... And this was France's expert. Hang on. Look at it. I screwed up. It's like diluting whiskey in Coke. Let's try that again. There it is. And that was, what's the next one? When it comes to diluting tritium, some environmentalists argue it's like diluting whiskey in Coke. The Woods Hole, scum, degenerate, monstrous pieces of shit who had gag orders against me for 3.5 years, by the way, to protect their assets, like Ken Abusler. Jim Smith, professor of environmental science, he shows up everywhere, don't he? Everywhere where the pro-nuclear needs someone to cut your throat. A professor of environmental science at a university from the United Kingdom is quite happy to cut your throat. They teach children in the school to cut your throat, and then they get in the media and cut your throat. backwards a bit. There it is. There she blows. And I thought it was. Oh, yeah. Jean-Christophe Gariel, the Deputy Director in charge of Health and the Environment at the French Institute for Radiological Protection and Nuclear Safety, no less than the IRSN themselves, said it's like Coke, diluting whiskey in Coke. He's the man for France. And the first thing he does is cut everybody's on the planet's and his own country's throat. And he went to school to get a brutally amazing education so he can get that job, just so he can cut your throat. Fukushima plume to reach the U.S. coast next year. There was a lot of that, wasn't it? The plume covered the entire planet in about 20 to 30 days. All the models show the same thing. There's so many laws you can't keep up with it, and it's still there every single day. And we do a program where we do a news cycle. Tonight's some of that. We're kind of a little bit all over the place because of the particular news from Fukushima today. Fukushima nuclear reactor spews steam. This is radioactive steam at over 10 sieverts per hour wherever it's to. It's a lethal dose wherever it touches. Japan's operator clueless about the cause. It was the China syndrome where they went down to the earth, come in contact with water, and the water expanded and split the earth, and then the steam coming out of the ground is in contact with the curium. So the biggest byproduct of a nuclear meltdown, as everybody knows, is curium isotopes, not cesium, not iodine. They're bad, but they ain't like curium. Concerning a reverse tsunami of radioactivity now moving back into the Pacific from the Fukushima plant. Senior official admits Fukushima plant is out of control, and TEPCO then claims he meant to say something else. Japan's prime minister to visit Fukushima and make a final decision. And what are they going to, like, so are they going to say, no, we're going to keep it and we're going to store it on land in the world, and South Korea and Asia, Taiwan and China and Japan are going to celebrate by proxy the rest of us too. Thank goodness they didn't dump it in the ocean and contaminate the sea, right? That's probably what they're up to. It remains to be seen. I guess we're going to know pretty soon by the sounds of it. Or is he going to say, no, we're going to dump it, and it's going to start on this date, and then the world starts protesting right around the world, and then they come out and said, no, well, okay, we'll dig a mine shaft and we'll store it, and the world will celebrate. We almost lost the Pacific Ocean. I think that's what they're up to. Either way, they're going to move on, right? Internet addiction to be classified as a mental illness. You can't do anything without the internet, for God's sakes. Most of your telephone now and mainstream media is the internet. That's how it's getting to your TV, right? Japan's Kishida to visit Fukushima to address release of water. Yeah, sick bastards. So the issue of releasing that they've never stopped. Right, they've never stopped releasing it. To treat it, well, you can't treat something that don't exist anymore. Wastewater is not wastewater, it's nuclear fuel. The release, which is never stopped, of the treat it, which is impossible because when you put that together, you have a chain reaction. Not only that, if you bioaccumulate it in the filter for an hour, you can never change the filter again. If you fill up a tank, the tank is so radioactive you can never get near it and build another tank on the site. Cannot be postponed. Construction of Fukushima plan to discharge the water over and over and over in every story. You see the same thing. Into suggesting they haven't. Has angered neighbors, including China. And China's not gullible. China's not naive. There's zero possibility that China doesn't know everything I showed you tonight. It's zero. Same thing for Taiwan, same thing South Korea. It's zero possibility they don't know. But they're all very insistent on cutting your throat and being very vocal about it. To treat it, release, based on to mitigate reputational damage, aka kill Dana. Because who else is out there kicking them when they're down? So if I was driving along and somebody flagged me down that was a nuclear scientist, the car had broken down, there's no chance I'm giving them a ride. Zero possibility. You got any water? No? Take care. Yoon told a press conference after the meeting with Kishida at Camp Davis U.S. President retreat that he trusted the result of the International Atomic Energy Agency examination. He told a press conference. So Korea expressed support for a report by the International Atomic Energy Agency. Japan's Prime Minister did not discuss the Tokyo's plan to release the water, treated water, from the cripple. You know, you heard the story, right? So he didn't discuss it. But South Korea did. They expressed support for a report by the International Atomic Energy Agency. That's three times, by the way. Yoon told a press conference after the meeting and with the U.S. zombie president that he trusts the results of the International Atomic Energy Agency. This is the president of South Korea we're talking about. It didn't, but Kishida didn't discuss it because he had Yoon do it for him, I guess. South Korea has expressed support that he trusts the results of the scumbag degenerate UN. They didn't discuss the plan, but everybody else did. So Kishida and Yoon agree. Again, these are perpetual liars, right? Fukushima melted fuel could have burnt through the floor and now is in the earth underneath the reactor. Well, yeah, 1 and 2, right? But 3 and 4 are friggin' gone. ABC News, which is the piece of shit from Australia. Never-ending disaster at Fukushima. Japan is stumbling helplessly from one crisis to the next. And then they had ABC's Cecilia Vega, who's now currently in the White House Press Club and works for CBS, no less. Makes $1 million a year. Actually pretended she was in the fuel pool of Reactor 4. TEPCO advisor, Fukushima contaminated water problem will go on until all 3 molten fuel cores are somehow removed. Company simply not capable of handling the extreme difficult task. Right, and so that's why we should replace them with the degenerate nuclear scientists and the future murderers from the nuclear university students pool and all the nuke-tart academics you could ever want. We should sacrifice all of them before we sacrifice the homeless and the destitute. Don't you think? Fukushima Diachi plant did amazingly well, performed beyond best expectations. Let's have a look at that. Wow, that's pretty good. I'm impressed. If there's anything left. Clay sheet used for Fukushima nuclear waste leaked after just 8 days. Clay sheets. Yeah, that's going to help. The Great Wall of Fukushima to be built underground. The ice wall, they said they had 260,000 people work on the ice wall at the meltdown site. There were 7,000 people every day working underwater, make sure it didn't get into the ocean. They're going around with buckets catching it. And when they died, somebody else would pick up the bucket and bring it to the tank. And then when they died, someone would take the bucket and bring it up and dump it in the tank. Honest to God, I swear. Highest fallout levels in Tokyo since soon after Fukushima crisis began 2013. Situation in Fukushima beyond imagination. Many young and old people dead from heart attacks. Yeah, there was 14,000 died in just a single month extra mortality from heart attacks than any other year of that time frame, right? Japan's Prime Minister will visit Fukushima for the wastewater is released. Trust the science! Watch the nose! Ah! Watch the nose. Trust the science. Kishida to visit Fukushima nuclear plant on Sunday. Yeah, we're going to go over to the plant. He's got the American podium, right? He's in America doing that. I thought he said he never had any discussions about it. Japan said it will remove most radioactive elements from the water except for tritium. Japan said it will. You sure that wasn't TEPCO, which was nationalized immediately, by the way, because it went bankrupt? Editing by Tim the Killer, Sonia Paul the murderer, and Sandra the mass genocide machine. The International Atomic Energy Agency greenlit the release, Dania. Trust the science! How safe is it? Don't worry about it. It's safe. Japan's plan to release into the ocean 500 Olympic-sized swimming pools. What, a day? Like a reactor needs 1 million gallons a minute, 1,440 minutes a day. You can fill up all the tanks 6 times a day a single reactor could. Oh, Excel. That was funny to anybody with the right kind of sarcasm. Excel Energy is building a wall to protect the river after Monticello nuclear power plant leak. Every time a plant leaks, it's tritium. Nothing else can get out, only tritium, apparently. This comes months after Excel was found to have leaked into the groundwater at the site. So last November, and that's the Mississippi River, and on top of the picture, like every other nuclear power plant, is surrounded by farms, right? You don't need a picture to know this because that's just the way it is. And then what don't make it to the farm flows down into the river. Whisk it away so there's no huge numbers like there would normally be if that was in a spot where they didn't have those attributes. Because farmers, right, are moving the food out, the radioactive food out to the supermarkets so they can get you in the supermarkets. And the river, of course, everybody got to drink water. And the farmers need water. Where do you think all those farms are getting their water from? Oh, that's right, the Mississippi River. So in November, their official number was 400,000 gallons, 1.2 million liters of tritium. Now, there is no tritium lines at a nuclear power plant. It's absurd to suggest there's no tanks there where they store the tritium. And so they waited 4 months, and then he came out and said, oh, by the way, 4 months ago we had a leak. Now, it was minus 30, so nothing goes into the ground minus 30. It's just like a rock, right? So everything runs straight to the river. So 4 months later, they told the population, they said, and so tomorrow morning you can come on down. We set up an office and we got slides and photos and people will talk to you and explain it to you. And so they had the whole public relation thing ready to go. They had coffee and donuts. And so then about a week later, they said, oh, we're going to start testing the water next week. So now you're talking almost 5 months later. So 5 months later, they tested the water and they didn't find very much. So thank goodness, right? Did you test it when it happened? Well, no, because that'd make us look bad. Why'd you wait 4 months? Well, because we're in the nuclear industry. We can do whatever we want. Who's going to hold us accountable? Media? Universities? The schools of mass destruction are going to hold us accountable. Hey, Georgia, the schools of mass destruction are going to hold us accountable. Such a sad story. Trust the science. Fukushima evacuee housing compared to World War II internment camps. They had them in little boxes, and they had vending machines that whenever they bought something was saying, don't give up on Fukushima, baby. Fox News, humans to be affected by what's killing the California sea lions. It would be sad if it's from Fukushima. Well, yeah, it was from Fukushima. There's a Neptunium-238 dispersions. You know, I got all these models, but I don't have a single model of tritium. I got models of, that was Neptunium, Xenon-133 model after 20 days covering the planet. This is cesium and iodine covering the planet after 40 days from NOAA. I don't have a single model of the tritium. And the only one now that they acknowledge is tritium. Trust the science. So enraged by response to the government, Fukushima children rashes, nosebleeds, diarrhea, fatigue blamed on phobia. They're in a nuclear wasteland, right? That's undeniable. Alarming reality at the Fukushima Diachi plant faced with a new crisis. TEPCO clearly just hanging on for day by day. CNN, the air nuclear-powered propaganda, irrational fears, systematically debunks the myth and misinformation. CNN, Veritasium, had put out a pro-nuclear video from YouTube, and it equated everything, including Chernobyl, with bananas. Chernobyl is equal to 362 bananas a year, and it was really, and we ridiculed him, eh? All kinds of people attacked me saying, he's only trying to make a buck. Yeah, well, you kill a whole bunch of people because you made incapable of avoiding danger. And CNN paid for it. What a despicable piece of shit. There's a lot of people out there shouldn't have arms and legs and a tongue, if you ask me, and he's one of them. CNN aired nuclear-powered propaganda, irrational fears, systematically debunks the myths and informations with the propaganda machine itself. Radioactive material spikes and saw the Fukushima plant 10 times higher than 2 days prior, which was run. That's the China syndrome, the constant plumes coming out of the ground, right, where the ground is split open. Many experts are extremely concerned we could have additional releases. Very, very unstable, Timmy. Australia had to roll out a couple of... Sky News host slammed environmental minister for disregarding nuclear energy as a false hope. Well, she came out and said nuclear is just, it's stupid. We can't put nuclear in Australia. We got too many other things. They're perfect for renewable. They're perfect for geothermal. They're unbelievably perfect for geothermal. They won't even look at it. But she come out and just attacked her because she didn't want to have nuclear. And she made no sense. She literally got the IQ of a fruit fly, literally an IQ. The guy in the middle was the same way. Look at his face. Well, nuclear is cold. So she said, we're sitting on the world's biggest reserve of uranium. We ship it around the world so people can enjoy. It was Australia's fuel, by the way, they were using it at Fukushima. So people can also enjoy reliable energy, but we can't. Enjoy. And the tragic truth behind Oppenheimer is his first victims were abandoned and he suffered the cancer curse. There's 1,800 diseases and illnesses and autoimmune deficiencies and injuries. It's not just cancer. Fukushima nuclear struggles would be the stuff of comedy. It's not funny, not really. Not sure things could be much worse if Wiley E. Coyote were TEPCO's CEO. Well, they are, aren't they? Shooting nuclear waste into the sun. Space disposal considered by Obama Commission. Hidden Fukushima nuclear waste, being released into the ocean. Well, it's not hidden, they're just not talking about it. Surprisingly high levels of radiation detected along the Pacific coast and groundwater far from the reactors. No one expected this except for anybody that was looking. Feds find bizarre results in survey of the Pacific Ocean. That was 2017 in October. I was actually on the ocean at that time for many months on a research expedition. Record low numbers of fish. We pulled that net up and there was not a thing in it. It's different than anything we've ever seen, they said. Fukushima should be ranked as a level 10 nuclear disaster. The scale only goes to 7. Plant worker, we've caused the worst kind of accident. What a homeless he's talking about, not a plant worker. Fukushima radiation found in Hawaii fish. Almost half contain nuclear fallout from Japan. Well, it's more than half. It's impossible for not all of them to be radioactive. It's impossible. Scientists are shocked as the fisheries collapse along the west coast. It's the worst we've seen. They're starving. Death rates are skyrocketing. No babies being born. Fish stocks at an all-time record low. Over 1 trillion becquerels of nuclear waste fell on Hawaii. Oh, it was more than 1 trillion, for goodness sakes. Just a gram of cesium is 4.5 trillion atoms, or becquerels. It never stopped, right? Let me see. I'll show you Hawaii. This one does a pretty good job of it. You tell me what you think. And so you see Hawaii, right up there, the island. Watch the plume when it first goes past it. The big plume where it splits. Watch how does it... Oh, that's not the one. Hang on. Maybe I got it. Irregardless, Hawaii's in the kill zone, right? They just barbecued 14,000 people's homes. It's around 1,400 people were missing. Presumed atomized and aerosoled. What a colossal screw up, my God. And a lot of children were home by themselves because school was out. Fukushima cover-up, keep cancers a secret, says doctor. We're getting leukemias and cardiacs, and then they die suddenly. Students having heart attacks. Official actively ignoring report of illnesses and deaths. Radiation near Tokyo spiked at 100 million times normal. So 1 billion per square meter becquerels. And tenths of contamination hit Tokyo over and over and over and over and over. hidden from the public constantly. Japan's pledged to flood the Pacific. This is 2017, folks, with 1 million tons of water. Well, they never stopped pumping it into the ocean. The buildings are destroyed, right? It was like that from day one. And that really offends me when they say that they're going to, when they've never stopped dumping it. And they never stopped shipping food from the nuclear wasteland. It's a massive nuclear wasteland. They're growing food right alongside the 1-ton bags every year in a no-go zone, which is a nuclear wasteland. And they're claiming this has never happened, that didn't exist. They're claiming that that never happened in order to support their assertions that there's no adverse side effects. And so they'll exterminate, they're exterminating all the species. If you go back and watch the video posted on Thursday, I done a show on Friday and Saturday on 911 up at Rumble, my Rumble site. I streamed the same show we done on Thursday here today also. So this is 8 shows in 8 days in a row doing shows. So I streamed a 40-minute one last night on Rumble and an hour and 40-minute 911 video on Friday. 67 views, no comments, no likes. 7 views on that one was just an upload. And 40 minutes, I got 74 views over a day later. And today I got 357 views on the restream of Fukushima. We figured out what's wrong with the truck. In your faces, who said we never figured out. Just kidding you. So the transfer case is shot. It's full of ridiculous amount of mental shavings. So we put oil back in it. I brought it home, paid the bill. And so now they thought it was the transmission originally, right? I told them, check the transfer case. So tomorrow they're going to be looking for a transfer case, a second-hand one, to put in it. I'm just frightened to death. But at least we got a diagnosis. We got to get it resolved so we can get some research in. We still got almost 2 months of research we can do. And we got 16 trips on the ocean so far this year. And so I'm also, the 2 wheel bearings will be here tomorrow or Tuesday. Once we get the 2 wheel bearings in, we got an appointment for the following week for that. If we can find the transfer case, they're probably going to do it right away. And I know that's going to be a big bill. Stephen Young donated $50 today, by the way. Thank you, Stephen. And so we're dead in the water until we get the truck up and running. Because we've got all these years of research is caught up on me. And I'm doing the best I can all day, every day. I never stop, right? And I ran into the ground, but I'm still in good spirit. And I'm still got lots to go, I hope, left in me. I'm still worthy, I hope. The world needs to make a stand. You got to make a stand, folks. Worldwide, you're making a mistake by not challenging the industry. And I provided a ridiculous amount every week on this site for you to get up to speed. It won't take you long. And you'll see the urgency too. And get out there and bash these fuckers every chance you get. That's the best thing you can do. That's a good legacy. Nothing wrong with that. I'm doing an educational program. And I'm also now incorporating, because what they done on September 11th was shocking. And so we articulated that in the presentations up at my Rumble site. If you're interested in that kind of stuff, maybe you are, maybe you're not. I don't know anymore. I don't think I know anything anymore. The world's a funny place. There's a little crew of us that are fighting for everybody else's future by being realistic instead of sadistic like the nuclear industry. Should the nuclear scientists, nuclear university students, because they're going to grow up and murder your loved ones, and nuke-tired academics replace TEPCO at Fukushima nuclear meltdown? As a big affirmative, Dana, affirmative. Yeah, I can't keep driving because it's worse. All I can do is bring it back and get it fixed. I can make it back, but I can't keep driving it. We'll find it. It's here somewhere. Good night, everybody. Hugs for everybody. Have a great night. Have a great day tomorrow. We'll see everybody tomorrow night. We'll see everybody tomorrow night. And anyway, I'm doing the best I can. I'll keep doing that. I'll do my part. You have a great night. We'll see everybody tomorrow night. Hugs for everybody. Have a great day tomorrow. Just say no to food and water and air for the rest of your life, and nuclear can never be a problem. See everybody on the other side. Take care, folks. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up if you make it this far.